Go.
Hi, I'm Julie from Fabric Garden Quilt Shop in Sacramento, and this is going to be the last installment of the Humble and Heartfelt block of the month. So this month is month 6 and it is the last month. This month all you have to do is make 2 blocks. I'm sure they will be no different than you've made in the past. It's all the folded corners, the same techniques. But this month you get to put your quilt together. So after you've made the blocks for this month, which are number 6 and 20, then you get to sew everything together. And it is very easy to sew together. I've got the, I'm just gonna kind of hold this up a little bit here. What you do is, if you have numbered your blocks as you have gone along, just follow the diagram. It starts with block 1 through 5 is the first row, 6 through 10 is the second row, etc. And so just sew them together piece by piece, and then sew the rows together, and then press them in. The pattern will give you the directions for the arrows to press. So once you get your center block together and press nicely, the next thing you have to do is put your borders on. So the first border that we're going to put on is a plain border, and it is, I think the pattern tells you to cut 1.5 by width of fabric strips, and you need 6 strips. The pattern also tells you to sew those strips together end to end until you have one long strip, and then you're going to cut it to whatever size she says to cut it. If your sewing is perfect, if every single seam in every single block is 1/4 inch, then maybe you can cut it to the specific measurements that Kim Deal has suggested for you. However, I am not a perfect piecer. I wish I was, but I am not. And if I did that, my borders would be pretty wavy, I think. So in order to eliminate wavy borders, what I like to do is, you will have to piece 2 strips together because the width of your quilt is going to be 52-ish inches or 50 sort of inches. And so you do need to piece 2 strips together before you can put that inner border on. The pattern suggests that you put them together end to end, which would be a straight seam. You can do that, it's not wrong to do that. I prefer to sew them together at a 45-degree angle and then press that seam open. I feel that it's less noticeable, the seam is less noticeable. So I have done it in the past when I don't have enough fabric, and it just bugs me because my eye has gone right to that straight seam. So whatever you choose to do is fine. So I'm just going to show you, I'm going to move this big quilt out of the way, and I'm just going to grab a little one. I'm off camera for a second. In order to prevent wavy borders, the best thing to do is, this is a smaller quilt just so that you can see it better. I have my strip here. I'm going to find the middle of my quilt, the center. Let me move the papers out of the way for the camera. Find the center of your quilt, and it doesn't have to be the exact center. You can eyeball it. I have trimmed the salvage off of this piece, and it's nice and straight. Lay your quilt out on a flat surface and make sure it's smooth. You don't want to stretch it, but you do want it to be nice and smooth. Line up your raw edges, and then on this end, you're going to take your ruler, and you can line the ruler edge up with the raw edges here, and then just trim your piece off, just like that. And then in order to make this so that it's straight, you're gonna, again, I forgot to say, you're gonna start with the sides. You do your 2 sides and then your top and bottom. So this will be my side. So just fold your border in half. You can just pinch it to find the center. Then you wanna find the center of your quilt. And then you're gonna match the centers, and then you're gonna match the edges, the raw edges on both sides, and then you will just pin periodically through here until it's nice and straight. And then you're going to sew your 1/4 inch seam. Press the seam allowance to the inner border. So once you have your inner borders put on, the next step is your outer border, which you know, could be a little tricky, but it's really not. You're gonna make 24 of these flying geese variations, and they're the folded corners, just like you've done all through all of the blocks. And again, you're gonna pin it, you're gonna sew, just draw a diagonal line, pin it, sew on the line, fold it up, press it, and then trim it off. Just make sure before you trim it that everything is sewn where you want it to be. So you're gonna make 24 of those, and then for the edges, the outside edges, you probably can't see it on the camera, that's okay. There are these two little pieces here, okay? You need 4 with the feet going in this direction and 4 going in this direction. So again, you're gonna, you know, same thing, you're gonna draw your line, press it, and fold it over. Before you trim it, make sure that you have got 4 going in one direction and 4 going in the other, otherwise they won't match up. So then just piece it according to the directions and press in the directions that she says. When you put the outer borders on, again, you're gonna start with the sides, and because these are pieced, you're actually not gonna be able to put them on the same way you did the inner border by measuring through the middle. So we're gonna assume that your stitches are perfect, your seams are perfect, but you do just find the center of that border and then match the center to the quilt, pin the, on the raw edges, and then pin across and stitch it. So after you've got the sides on, then you need to put your, put the cornerstones on, which is this one here, on the top and bottom. So once you've found the center of your border and the center of your quilt, go ahead and match these seams up with this seam here and the raw edges and pin those in place. And your quilt is done. I will suggest before you take it to the quilter, or even if you are, you know, going to quilt it yourself, that you stay stitch all the way around the quilt about 1/8 of an inch. That will prevent the seams from coming out. Since you have so many seams on the outer border, it will prevent them from popping, and it will also prevent the quilt from stretching if it gets overhandled when it's being quilted. I will also suggest that you, because it's going to be a single layer, don't sew fast, because that does tend to stretch the quilt as well. So just, you know, a nice even speed when you're doing that stay stitching. Once you get it back from the quilter, you're going to do a pieced binding. So just go ahead and gather up all your scraps and just sew them together randomly with a 45-degree angle, and just stitch them in however order you want, however long they are. The other trick I will say is it is best to lay this all out before you actually start stitching it down, because you want to make sure that something like this doesn't end up in a corner where you've got a seam there. So that is that for the quilt itself. So now, if you have saved all your little half square triangles that you had to snip off from all those blocks that you've made, I do have a couple of little projects you can make. One of them is this little quilt right here, and I just sewed the colors together and made pinwheels, and then just, you know, put some sashing in there with my little scraps of yellow that I had left over. And then I'm just going to put that black binding up, the black border on. So it'll just be a simple border all the way around. And then I have a little table topper. The other thing you can do is, and I won't take credit for this because I had some friends help me lay this out on a design wall, but these half square triangles are just sewn together and to make a little offset design. You can take all of your triangles and build on this and make it bigger and bigger, but I just wanted a little table topper. So there's that, and I think this one I showed you before. This is from Kim Deal's book, Simple Patchwork, but these are all leftover half square triangles that I just sewed together and made into a pillow. when I made my little pinwheel quilt, I discovered I had one leftover pinwheel. So I made a little pincushion. So you could make a ton of pincushions if you'd rather have that. So those are just a few ideas that you can use with all your scraps, and I hope you've had fun making this quilt, and happy quilting. Thank you.